Self-Bleacher-Players take their game to the next level.
There's no crying in baseball.
Forget about the curveball, Ricky. Give him the heater.
You're killing me, Schmalz.
Candlesticks always make a nice wedding present.
Oh, people take vacations shorter than that. Pick me out a winner, Bobby.
Now here is your show and go team.
You guys, here we are.
Yeah.
You guys don't enjoy it near as much as I enjoy it. The intro, like the excitement.
We just like look at you. We're watching you. It's
I'm
so
literally
fun.
in a room by myself, and I'm having a good time. This is strange. I should be more depressed, I guess.
Tim, there's never been a room where you haven't had a good time. You know, it's no surprise that you're having a good time.
That's a good point.
I don't even know what that means. Where's my intro? Okay. Yeah. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Go and Go. This is a baseball podcast to help and educate the amateur player as well as coaches and parents about the game within the game. My name is Tim Dillard, professional pitcher in baseball for the last 16 years. And if I don't screw up this spring training, I'll have number 17 under my belt. Joining the podcast is Chicago Cub, current big leaguer, 2016 World Series MVP, Ben Zobrist. Hello, Ben.
Hello, Tim.
And literally sitting next to you, right? Because you guys are actually in the same room, even though we're like across the valley in Phoenix. And this is what I wrote. Ready for this one? Is Super Gold Vibranium Elite Sports Trainer to the Stars, Joshua Costello.
I added one yet.
I know. I added a
Vibranium.
Marvel made-up element. I thought that was good. And rounding out the cast of characters is the head baseball coach at Trevecca Nazarene University in beautiful Nashville, Tennessee, Ryan Schmalz. Yeah! We're doing it.
Let's go.
We're doing it.
Let's go.
Whew.
So how's spring training going, fellas?
Yeah, I mean,
Tim, you got here first.
I got here first. I've done a lot of stuff. I got a win. I got a loss. I have a blown save. My ERA is in the triple digits. But I've only had 2 outings, so that's hard to do. That's
a lot in 2 outings.
I know, right? It's just they're like, get out there, and I'm like, me, or you want to get someone else? Me? All right, cool. Yeah. No, I've been having a good time. Been shooting some videos, getting to know my teammates. The Rangers are a good club, top to bottom. I've loved the coaching staff and the players. They're doing some good things, and I don't know. I'm every day I walk in, it's exciting environment. And I know, Ben, you can attest to this. You have Joe Madden, right?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's fun. It's fun. Spring training, I think, is one of the more fun parts of the year because you have a lot of added people to the mix that aren't necessarily going to be there all year.
Like
And
me.
like
me. Yeah.
like Dim Tiller. No, speaking of, though, you know, we have one of your former comrades in Mike Zagurski in our clubhouse who is an absolute beaut. I love this guy so far.
Yes.
I'm really digging being around him, and every time he talks, I listen up.
He's one of my favorite teammates of all
Came to
time.
work out at Trevecca this year in the offseason.
Yes,
Yeah, he did.
he's a Nashville guy too. So,
Yeah,
so
I couldn't
basically,
wait to
we should
hang
be
out with him.
having him on this podcast.
I know we should. We should. He is the most transparent person I've ever teammate I've ever had. Maybe the most transparent person I've ever been around. He is himself in every environment, and it's truly inspiring.
Yeah, you guys are fit from the same mold. There's no doubt about it. But no, it's been good. It's been good. Our clubhouse has been fun. You know, we always have a really kind of light mood about the Cubs camp, especially with Joe at the helm. But also, we have the world famous strength and conditioning coach Tim Buss, who does basically a skit every morning before the start of the day.
What
stories.
What did he do this morning?
This morning he was actually wearing socks pulled up to the knees. You know those old coaching shorts that are like polyester that are super tight, and they have like they have like a belt loop and everything. He was wearing those with a really tight.
Those are
shirt,
amazing.
really tight shirt, and he also was wearing a cowboy hat.
Oh yeah.
And he made some of his strength and conditioning younger guys behind him dress the same exact way.
Oh,
So he made them dressing
man.
like these tight shorts and
team camaraderie.
socks pulled up and stuff. Yeah, it was
That's so
it was a
good.
beautiful thing.
Those pants are, I mean, on one hand, they're like really funny. Another hand, they're like extremely creepy.
They are very creepy.
I saw a guy, they get these older guys down the lines during spring training, when there's a foul ball, they have a guy wearing a helmet and a glove. He gets it and he gives it to somebody in the stands. And I saw a guy the other day, we were playing, I think the Indians, and this guy had the most unbelievable coach's cut off pants shorts. I was like, wow, man, those are like originals. This guy was probably about 60.
That's amazing. And those actually, Costello was there last year. Speaking of Bussy, our strength and conditioning coach.
Yeah.
What happened last year when you showed up?
This is like the second year in a row where it happened twice. But when I showed up, I got into the weight room, and he was wearing bikinis, right?
Bikini briefs?
Bikini briefs.
What?
Shirt off.
Yeah. Yeah, no shirt,
no shirt.
bikini
gosh.
briefs that particular day. I'm not really sure. He does it usually like one day in each camp, each of the last 3 years I've been there. And apparently
Comfortable
happened to come.
Yeah. Is that business casual?
He walked in the room at the wrong
I got
time.
to see him.
Yeah.
He looks great.
You got to see him. Listen, for our PG audience listening at home, what are bikini briefs?
Basically a Speedo. It was a Speedo.
Oh, that's fantastic.
European swimwear.
Actually, the one he was wearing last year, I believe, was a Jito because it was looked like jean material.
Oh,
It was actually a Speedo.
I didn't know what you were gonna say. Yeah. Jean shorts.
That's great.
Whatever you got to do to motivate major league players, apparently in spring training. That's
Tim,
what
you got to get this. Tim's got to get this guy on some videos, some dub smashes, man. That'd be
I
fantastic.
just want to meet him and give him a hug and be like, "I understand you, sir."
That's great.
Well, good stuff. Are we good?
Good
I
stuff.
honestly don't know what we're doing tonight. Today, whatever time it is.
We're supposed to be talking about something important.
I think we have.
Coach, you have to have something for us.
Laser focus.
Yeah, I do. I got it. We're talking parenting today. This is one of the things that, Tim, you've gotten a lot of emails and listeners that have asked about, parenting tips for parents, things, that players need from parents. I thought, it'd be great to talk about, just the role of a parent in a young baseball player and, kind of see what y'all's parents were like and maybe some stories that you guys have had throughout your careers and things that you've seen and even with your own kids playing too.
This sounds like
who's first? Who's going to lead us off?
This sounds like a counseling session. How much time you got, bud? No. My dad, he played in the big leagues and coached for pretty much my entire life. And not one moment of my life can I look back and feel like he gave me any pressure to play baseball. I always looked at our house as like played against sports, right? As long as we were outside, he didn't care what was going on. Hey, here's a football, a basketball, a baseball, wiffle ball, like just be outside, But yeah, that's all I got. I'm done.
He had no advice for you.
Yeah, I love you, Dad.
Kos, what were your parents like when you were growing up and playing Little League and stuff?
My dad wasn't big on sports as a kid, so I kind of just had to learn on my own. So other guys kind of played that role for me. And which was kind of cool because I feel like I kind of do the same thing for kids just because that's what I experienced. So, but I just learned from a lot from coaches, not so much from my parents.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. What about you, Zoe?
I would say my parents were always very, very supportive. My mom was the biggest cheerleader, definitely wanted, big time encourager all the time of my play and whatnot. My dad, coming from the military, he spent a few years in the military. And then after that was very much about mental toughness when I was younger in regard to sports. He always linked the two together. So from an early age, it was about being mentally tough and strong and, learning how to overcome you know, whatever you had to overcome, or push yourself and be tougher than the next guy, you know, that you were competing against. So that was one of the key things I remember. But I also remember, you know, he was always a coach for me early on. So he was always very involved. I felt like he was very fair to everybody else, but I also felt like maybe there was a little bit more pressure on me to be good, because I think he also saw that I was gifted in the sports arena. So it was like, he's gifted, you know, you have to recognize that your physical giftings are not going to carry you. You know, he wanted me to, he always cared more about working hard and building the right kind of ethic and character into you as you play.
Yeah.
And there was I definitely felt like, okay, when I play, it's important that I do it the right way. Because if I didn't, I would definitely, you know, hear about that on the way home. Not my dad wasn't like badgering me at all, or he was never over the top, angry or anything like that, frustrated at me, but it was just more like, well, you know, he would question, you know, why I made a certain mistake, you know, and kind of ask me about, you know, what I was thinking on a certain play in the game or something like that. And that always made me super analytical about my play after the fact as I went forward. But I think that was probably some of that was already built into me in my own personality already as well. But that was those are the kind of things that I remember at a young age. And as I got older, it was really interesting how he kind of backed off. You know, in high school was still very involved in kind of talking to me about how I played. And then as soon as I got to college, it was like immediately, oh, well, I never played in college, so I can't tell you anything. He goes, you've reached a level that I've never reached. So now I'm just enjoying watching you. And he's been like that ever since. So just nothing but supportive. But he definitely saw himself as a coach in my life all throughout my childhood while I was living in the house.
For sure. Yeah, my dad was pretty similar to that. As though my dad coached me all throughout Little League, and you know, really up until I was in high school, he coached me, and you know, for my dad, it was more about like motivation, you know, and he knew how much I loved the game. He never really pushed me, but it was more about, you know, if you want to do this and be the best you can, you got to come up with it on your own, you know, like it's got to come from within you. One of the things, and I've said this before on the podcast, that he really ingrained in me is you got to want it. You know, if you want to be good and achieve your goals, you got to want it. You know, you got to go out and earn it. And never was over the top, you know, never really pushed too hard, and, you know, but definitely gave me every opportunity to get better, and never said no. You know, if I wanted to go out and hit and take batting practice or catch ground balls or anything, he was always there to, you know, do that for me. And my mom was, you know, she was definitely the encourager. I don't know if she ever missed any of the games I ever played in or anything like that. And it was extremely supportive, you know, throughout my upbringing. And, you know, one of the questions as I was thinking about this topic was, you know, I think a lot of parents want to know how hard to push, you know, when you see things that your kid can do better, maybe mistakes they're making, or, you know, you want to kind of be their safety net, but, you know, they kind of got to figure things out on their own too, you know? So the question is, you know, how hard, as a parent, how hard do you think they should push? You know, what are the boundaries for that, you know, with a kid, especially younger kids playing? And, you know, I know that's a common question I've heard, and I'm sure you guys have too. So I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
As long as the kid doesn't cry more than once a week, and that's kind of the standard, you know? Tell little Jimmy what's up, make him cry, and then you're good for 7 days. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, wow.
What if Jimmy's super sensitive?
There's no crying in baseball.
Oh, man, this is a huge topic. I see it a lot, just even with strength and conditioning, you know, where the parents bring the kid in. And that's one of the first things that I talk about in the meeting before we even train is, does Johnny or whoever want to be here for himself or for herself if it's a girl? I always make sure that there's an understanding there, because if it's a parents really pushing them hard, it never works out with the training that we do. It has to be on both sides.
It's definitely an individual thing. If you don't talk to that particular kid and know that kid, what they need, then you can't say any general sense of you got to push them this hard, or, you know, you got to let off in regard to this. I think for parents to just know their own child pretty well is you'd think that's kind of common sense, yeah, well, I know my kid, but honestly, like knowing them, I think so many parents live vicariously through their kid that they're kind of like pushing them the way that they wish their dad or somebody would have pushed them, because then they could have gotten the most out of themselves, and that's kind of what I always fear with parents that are overbearing, that you see is like, okay, if the kid doesn't really want it as much as you want it, then why are you doing this?
Absolutely.
Are you doing it because you're trying to go back and erase some of your own mistakes? You were too lazy and you don't ever want your kid to be lazy or something like that?
Oh, easy. We're going deep.
I don't know.
No, seriously. Like, that's what happens.
Thing. That is
just go straight for the jugular, man.
That's what happens. Because
That's
when
a real
I see these
thing.
parents that are a little bit too much, you can tell that they're bringing something from their story, which there's some good in that. You want to like encourage them to, be strong and to keep pushing through the game. But there's a line, definitely. I guess that's what we're kind of talking about.
I think the biggest thing is paying attention, right? Like if you're paying attention to your kid, you're going to know when to be, you have several different roles. You got to know when to be the encourager, when to be the pusher in a way, like, hey, let's really get after this, or the supporter. And really it's just being available. At the end of the day, it's paying attention and being available of what's going on and assuming those different roles. I never felt like I was pushed in any direction. I never felt any of that pressure. My dad, knowing all his baseball knowledge, he sat in the stands in high school and didn't say a word. He didn't say a word. I'm watching my kid play 9-year-old, 10-year-old baseball, and I'm like, like I'm biting my tongue. I'm like, what's going on right now? Like, here's 10 things I would say, and I don't say them, right? So I really respect my dad for holding back, because he's not the coach. There's a certain level where the parent feels like they need to step in, whether it's during the game where they yell, or it's, I need to say something to the coach. There's that moment where they're like, I got to intervene. I don't know where that comes from, but I had a good role model in my dad to go, you know what? It's very rarely when a parent needs to come forth and go, hey, I got to say something to the coach, because ultimately it's their team. They can do what they want. If you want to be a coach, by all means, you can volunteer and be a coach.
Now, let me ask you this question, though, because you are the third of 3 brothers, right?
Yes.
That played baseball. And your dad was a major league player. So in a way, your dad kind of had this 30,000-foot view of the situation that most parents don't have. Like if it's your first kid and you never played above high school, like how are you supposed to know how to go about things? But I think your dad obviously had some clarity about how, the perspective on the game. Like, okay, my son, I'm not going to expect him to play at the level I played at. Yeah. But also I bet he was different with your older brothers. And he eventually probably worked down to the fact that now here comes little Timmy, and
I was like 11 pounds when I was born.
You're just this happy-go-lucky kid,
That was bad. I was big.
Wanting to make videos before they were even out there.
I will say that's a great point, and I've never even thought about that. So my dad had got to see 2 of my older brothers go through Little League and all that, and then see me. And he probably saw some potential in me that he probably saw in the other 2, but maybe things came a little easier to me. If I was going to dominate, and be a shortstop, it came a little easier, or a first baseman, or a catcher, or a pitcher. And I think he saw that, but I did not know that as a kid. All he did was encourage me, push me in the right direction. When I asked questions, he was ready for an answer. To me, even at the age I'm at now, which if a scout's asking, 25, 35 right now, really. Yeah, whatever but like, I still want a coach to pay attention. You don't always have to be telling what to do. It's paying attention. And in that moment, step in and go, listen, I've seen this. This is my advice. And I felt like I got that from my dad, and I still get it now. He's not going to creep in and divulge everything that he thinks, because sometimes you just don't know. You may look at the game and you may even watch practices, but you still don't know what's going on. There's a certain level of the coach has an idea, and you hope they pay attention. And you have to kind of relinquish that feeling of, I have to control that. And my dad did that very well. And I think I'd like to think he knew my potential at a young age and then coming forward, but he never divulged that to me. He only was there to support me and help me along my journey.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen situations that turned out bad. And the thing that's crazy is you don't realize how bad it is until they're like in high school. That's when I see it. They've been pushed since age whatever, maybe 6 or 7. Every travel league, practicing extra, intense with like if you mess up, the kid is scared. There's kids that tell me like when they're in the box, they feel their parents' presence. Usually it's the father. In my situation, like they just feel just the eyes being on them, you know, the performance that they have to meet. And so it's kind of crazy because a kid will adapt, right? Us humans, we adapt to crazy things. It's amazing, but there is, you'll hit a wall at some point. And so I see these kids in high school and that's when they're hitting that wall. And some of them will have scholarships to big D1 schools. And they're like, I'm done. I'm out. I'm going to try something else. So
pressure.
I think parents, you know, for the most part have the best intentions in mind. And I think one of the things they try to do is protect their child from failure. You know, they want so bad for their child to be successful. They want so bad for nothing to go wrong and for them to have a good experience throughout their baseball career or, you know, whatever they're doing. And they'll kind of stop at nothing to, you know, to make sure that their child is, you know, having the success that they want. And I would say this, I would say that failing, especially at the younger levels, is not the worst thing that could happen to your child. You know, they need to learn that when things don't go their way, they need to learn how to handle that. You know, they need to learn how to overcome, especially when the stakes are low, you know, when they're little and, you know, there's not a ton on the line, that it's a pretty good lesson for them to learn how to handle things when they don't go their way. And parents don't necessarily need to be that safety net for their child all the time. And I think one of the best things they can do for them is to let them fail.
Absolutely. Totally agree with that. But they also feel like the stakes are higher from a younger age. You know, these kids that are in travel ball that are, you know, they're really good players. And I mean, man, there's people starting to look at these kids. I mean, Scott Boras just talked about seeing Bryce Harper when he was 14 years old. You know, it's like an agent looking at a kid at that age. Seriously?
Unbelievable.
I mean, so parents are thinking, well, man, by the time my kid's 11, 12, he's got to be on the elite team and he can't be failing in these big tournaments. He's playing in big tournaments all the time. It could be that time that the scout sees him or this particular coach sees him. And that's why I'm thinking like, man, we're backing up like scholarship thoughts and to all the way to like 10 years old and younger now. And you're going, man, you're looking that far ahead for your kid's future when who knows what's going to happen the next 8 years of their life. You know, they might play for 2 more years and get injured and not play again, or they might find something else that they really like to do. I mean, there's still so much development happening that I think that's one of the problems that I see in parents is just looking ahead, too far ahead. I remember as a kid just thinking,
no doubt,
I can't wait to play in my next game. That'll be fun. You know, we got a game coming up Friday. Let's play the game this weekend.
Yeah.
You know, and I never thought about the end of the season.
And we'll get some ice cream after the game.
Yeah, and then ice cream. And I want to go have a hot dog. Can we go to concession stand afterwards and get some candy?
Capri Sun and popcorn. You know, and I will say this. I think where you have these moments of parents screaming during the game, super involved, I would say a lot of times, like maybe on one hand, they're protecting their kid in some way, or they feel like they're supporting them. But I think that they're looking so long-term at a young age. It could be 5 years old or 10 years old or even 15 years old. They're looking so far into the future that they think that this moment just matters. You know, and that comes out. Go to a Little League game. I've been to some. There are some parents that are screaming, and a lot of them are my friends. So I'm going to apologize if they're listening.
Call them out right now. Say their name, full name.
No. Bill, you know who you are, Bill. No, I'm just kidding. But I think it comes with like, okay, my kid's the best kid ever. You don't know. The percentage is so low for guys to play in high school, and then lower to play in college, and lower to play in pro ball, and just have the mentality of just saying, it's not being negative. Do I think that my son, who's 10 years old, can play in the big leagues? I mean, he has every opportunity. Like, why not? But I'm not bringing that into every single time I see him or every time he goes to the plate. I think you're talking about bringing that with you, whatever your expectations are or whatever your story is. You have to leave that at the door. This is your kid's out there. That's your kid. That's your kid doing it. That's his story. You're along for the ride. It has nothing to do with you. You are there to help and to support and guide, but at the same time, it's their story.
Absolutely.
So let's assume though that these parents have the right motives, and they still are finding themselves getting so emotionally involved because guess what? Yeah, it isn't their story, but it's the person that they care most about in the world. They're sacrificing for this kid every day.
Yeah.
They want the best for them. And so their emotions are caught up in the scenario, more so sometimes in the kids, obviously, right?
Yeah.
And so they're at this game, they're at this tournament, or they're watching this coach butcher, the game or whatever. And
coaches never do that. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Sure. Or they're watching the umpire butcher calls, which happens. And there's no umpires here. Yeah.
But, Tim, that Chris Farley, the movie where he's trying to sell, is that Tommy Boy?
Tommy Boy, yeah.
He's trying to sell.
Yeah, here's my cell.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, I got this pretty new pet, and you're naughty. He's it's like he loves it to death, right? He loves it so much that he
loves it so much that it just explodes in front of him.
That's right.
We need to put that clip in this podcast because seriously, it's exactly what we're talking about.
From Tommy Boy, right? That's from Tommy Boy.
Oh my
God, love it so much.
Hey,
if you're a great scene,
parents,
it's PG-13, so if you're under 12, you can't watch Tommy Boy yet.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. A lot of guidance in Tommy Boy.
Yeah, I forget what I was saying. You just interrupted me.
You were saying if the parents get
good.
so emotional because they love their child so much,
and that's exactly right. And at the end of the day, even if your motives are completely pure as a parent, just remember this: your motives can be perfectly pure. You just want the best for your kid, but it is coming across wrong. It might be coming across wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
Just know that and beware of that.
Yeah. And know what you look like at games, right? Like people get on to me. They're like, hey, did you see that play? Cause there's some parents that know that I've been playing professional baseball for a long time, or I played in the big leagues, and they're just like, what do you got on that? And I'm like, well, they're 10. So I don't expect them to make a backhanded double play. Like I expect them to play like 10-year-olds, and you have to check that at the door. When you walk in, you should have a mindset of, I let my kid out of the minivan or whatever, right? Like once they leave, it's them. It's all about them. And know what you look like when you said that, Ben, like just clap, right? But you're encouraging both sides. What I get kind of worked up about, I shouldn't, but I sit there and I see only people clap for one side. I get that in pro ball. Like, I'm not going to clap for the other team when they smash a home run off me, which happened a couple days ago. I'm not clapping for that. But when you're 10 years old and the kid does something very well that, a 10-year-old probably shouldn't be doing, and it's, it's kind of advanced, appreciate that. Go, wow, that was a great play. Like, appreciate both sides of what's going on. Your kid may be the worst kid out there, but there's some other kids out there that are doing really well. And you don't shun them because they're, better than your kid. It doesn't matter. A year can change everything. Next year, they may be the best kid on the team. You don't know that. So you treat everyone the same and you appreciate the game for what it is, but you have to have a plan. If you're the parent that flies off the handle, you have to have a plan when you walk in. Otherwise, you're right. It looks bad.
It's going to get out of control.
Yeah, you do. You have to think about it. You can't just react.
Yes. Emotion.
It's like and when I see these parents at some of these games, it's like, are you even thinking about what you're saying right now? Like, if we recorded them on video instead of the kid, let's record the parent.
Oh my gosh.
And then put that on YouTube. Like, they would be like, oh shoot. Like, there might be some guys that still wouldn't see it, but it changes everything.
It does.
So that
I made
goes
this
to one thing I had is, I think it's I don't know if parents do this, but it'd be healthy to just have a friend or the other spouse be like, hey, how am I doing? You know,
Somebody to smack you when you get out of line.
I mean, accountability.
Yeah.
Okay, I made 2 lists, and I'm gonna read it to you guys. Okay, what to do as a parent and what not to do. Okay, so I want your guys' feedback on this. Okay,
Why are you laughing so much?
Tim is
I know Ryan, and I know he's like, listen, I made a list. And it's like, yes, my
well,
man.
I don't know what's so funny.
I don't know.
I almost don't want to read it already because
No,
you're
if
laughing.
it's not funny, then
Okay.
then shame on you. But yeah.
Okay, here's what to do. Here's what to do as a parent.
Okay.
Number 1, give your kids the opportunities. Do whatever it takes to give them the best opportunities to play with what they want to do, not what you want them to do. Number 2, do not equate the kid's value with their performance. You know, not just
Ever.
ever. Yeah. Not just make them feel great about themselves if their results are good. You got to keep the value and the performance.
So
separate.
these are like serious things. I thought. I
Yeah,
didn't know
this
that.
is
All right,
no. This is
sorry,
real.
Go ahead.
Do you feel bad now for
Yeah, a
laughing at me?
little bit.
Okay. The third one.
Tim's got a list that is slightly
Yeah.
different,
I'm
apparently.
making my own.
Stay positive. Always be positive.
Three.
Find out what your kid loves about the game. I think that's really important to find out what they love about the game because that's going to really motivate them every day.
That's a good one. That's a really good one.
Another one is give your kid perspective. Don't let one game. I really needed this as a kid. Like it meant so much to me if we won or if we lost, and I had no perspective at all. Like it meant the world to me, win or lose. Another one is to try to find balance, you know, because some kids get so wrapped up into their game that they don't have really balance with anything else, that they're not involved with anything else other than the sport that they're playing in. So I think especially at young ages, to give them balance with other activities is really, really important. Okay, now here's what not to do. These are some of the things I've seen, and I'm sure you guys have seen too. This is going to be a little bit funnier. Do not take notes in the stands about what your kid is doing wrong, and read it to them after the game. Have you seen this? Like the parents in the stand,
man.
right? Like
No,
taking
I've not
notes, like
seen
doing stats, like
Please tell
writing
me this.
stats and taking notes, and they're like talking to them about it after games. It's unbelievable.
As a married person, like, hey, honey, here's where you failed. Like, what are you doing? Hey, son, I love you, but here's all the times you failed me. Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
Notepad,
Absolutely.
stands.
One of the other things I put is like, don't compromise on a kid's behavior, not their performance, but like their sportsmanship, the attitude, the effort, the things that have nothing to do with their ability or their performance. You know, that's the stuff that parents, I think, need to really focus on and get angry at, you know, or hold their kid accountable for way more than their performance on the field. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's a really good one.
Yeah.
Actually, you know, you talk about holding your kids accountable. Like that's one thing that I see, you see a lot less of nowadays. And kids that even young players that get to the big leagues don't expect to be held accountable for anything. It's kind of rare that a parent would pull a kid out of a game as opposed to like a coach doing it now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whereas it used to be, I think the younger generations, the parents would be like, no, Johnny, if you're going to do that on the field, you're out. Like you might be the best player on the team, but you're out for the game, or you're out for the next game or 2 games or whatever. Whereas now, like parents are the ones defending what their child is doing in some way, that a coach wants to discipline, or if a coach has to discipline a player for something that they've done, the parents are trying to, you know, pull them off the team or something like that. You know,
they're trying to justify it too.
That's a whole topic right there.
Every situation is different. Let me just say that first and foremost. But what I am saying is the ideal or the important things that about the game of baseball used to be more about character. It used to be more about character development. And that's why there was more accountability for the personal character of a player in any particular game. Whereas now it's less about that. It's more about the performance. So the character stuff is taken such a back seat that it's, you know, parents are over the top about performance. And not holding their child accountable about the personal conduct type of things in the game that are frankly more important.
It's integrity, right? Like, I don't care how good my kids do at what they're doing. To me, that's irrelevant. You know, we talked about character. What do you?
I think you're in the minority.
Yeah. What?
I think you're in the minority thinking that. I think there's a lot of
perspective too. Like, I have a little bit of perspective, and I'm not going to hinge everything I have on an 8-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 10-year-old. They're going to have different interests. And in a year, my kid may come to me and go, listen, I don't want to play baseball again. Well, as a guy that pretty much has my whole life wrapped in baseball, what do I do in that moment? Right. And so I'm not losing sleep over that. I want to know that in that moment when he comes to me and goes, listen, I don't want to play baseball, I have to sit there as a loving parent, go, okay, that's fine. But we need to give you something that you need to do. Like, I just want you to play a team sport so you can, function in society. Right.
Absolutely.
Like that, but at the same time, that's a hard thing. And you have to be prepared for that. Hey, by the way, your kid's not the best kid out there. Like, it stings.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that parents need to remember is, and it's funny because I'm not a parent, but I see it, with working with so many kids, is that you're developing your kid. So what you say or don't say, you're creating an experience for your kid. You're creating an atmosphere, a culture,
environment.
So, if you run into a situation where your kid is not being treated well, or he's sitting the bench and he should be not sitting the bench, everyone in the stands sees it, like, just let it happen. I'm not saying you have to let it happen every single season. You do got to stand up for your kid at times, but, the kid needs to learn how to fail and be treated poorly, like unfairly. That's life. Because when you get to work, like, if your kid doesn't make it to the show, or if they do, like, you're going to have times where things aren't fair. And these kids don't know how to respond to it because they were protected and fought for so long that they really didn't experience what life is all about, which is failure and being treated fair all the time.
Yeah, that adversity it's got to be welcomed when you're younger, because especially in sports, because it's a safe place to fail. It should be. It's no longer become that, but it used to be a microcosm of life. Right. And because you're going to have ups and downs, you're going to have failures, successes, you have teamwork, you have selfish, things that happen. There's a lot of things that you can experience in one baseball game, even, that will benefit you over the course of the life. But if you always have somebody, kind of as your defender and advocate out there that never wants to see you fail and is always ready to, come to your aid at every second, like, that's just, at some level, the kid has to learn how to deal with that stuff themselves. And what they need, especially as they get older, I would say high school, even college, like if you can end up playing in college, what you need is somebody to bounce those ideas off. Not somebody to tell you exactly how it's supposed to go, but somebody to be like, oh, hey, I struck out 4 times today and I'm really upset about that. It would be nice to have somebody to talk to about that isn't going to critique it. That's going to be like, man, I know that's hard. It's really hard to have that happen. You know what? Keep working hard, and I think you'll do just fine. Whatever it is, there has to be more than a coach. A parent has to be definitely more than a coach, and there's a lot there that a coach can't provide that a parent can.
No doubt.
I'll say this: like, you as a parent, if there's 2 parents that are involved, great. If it's only just one, you have to have a goal. What is your goal? Is your goal, if your kid's playing baseball, to be the best baseball player, or do you want to try to get a life lesson out of this? Because if you want them to be a great baseball player, you're going to hold on to every single play, every single thing they do, every time they strike out. It's going to be based on that emotion, back and forth, up and down, left, right, BA, select, start, But
that was from your Nintendo console.
Yeah, that was from Contra.
That's Contra.
Yeah, Contra 2-player. So
some of the parents will get that, the kids won't.
Yeah, the parents will get it. But at the same time, like if you have a different goal of, all right, so I want to teach my kid life lessons. I want him to function in society when he's 18 and he's living on his own. He can do his own laundry and go to college and be their own human. Then you need to make sure that they go through those emotions. They go through that dynamic that they have to go through with being on a team, failing, succeeding, and what that looks like. So, but if your goal is like, oh, they're going to play in the big leagues at 8 years old, you're sacrificing that life lesson. You're pushing that to the side and saying this is more important of what you think. And if that's the case, then go buy stock in something or get lotto numbers. Like if you can predict the future, then go do that. But if you can't, then have a different goal of saying, I want my kid to be a adult when they're supposed to be an adult. And that perspective is going to help you day in and day out when you watch your kid play.
One of the things that I think we're talking about here, Kosh, you alluded to this a little bit at the very beginning, is expectations. I think parents have these expectations of what their child should be doing. And a lot of times they're really unreasonable. They expect their kid to perform at a certain level, and that adds so much pressure to that kid. It really takes away the joy. I've seen this take so much joy away from a player, even as high as the college level, when they have so many expectations placed on them that they feel like even if they have a good game or do something well, that Tim, I can't even
Sorry. I'm trying to take a picture for social media.
I was trying to straight face it. I just couldn't hold on to it, man.
Brian, you don't like this picture. Your eyes are closed. Sorry, go ahead. What were you talking about?
I was just saying that the pressure it puts on kids really takes the joy, the joy away from players, and I think that's something that parents, I think we all do this. We all place expectations on our kids, and I think it's something you have to be really aware of, as a parent to see how maybe subconsciously or your verbals or nonverbals are putting this additional pressure and expectations on your kids.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you guys think?
How do you come across to your kid? Like, just take a step back. What does your kid think about you when they go to practice or they go to a game? Is it a delightful moment? Are you together going, this is going to be fun. We have a game, we have practice. Or is it a dreadful moment? Is your kid going, I'm doing this because my parents are making me do this. I'm doing this because they've put so much pressure on me that I feel this burden. They've put a burden on my back and said, okay, go play and you better do good. It's sad, but it's real. And I will say this. I bet there's some parents right now listening to this going, that's not me. That's really me. No, that's not me. That's totally me. Like, you should have that moment. Just self-evaluation, right? We should be doing that on a daily basis for, just in life in general. But in this aspect, you're talking about another human being who you love. Like, you should have that self-assessment, that self-awareness of how you're coming across to your child. Nothing?
Preach it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. As parents, I have a 10-year-old son right now, and of course, when you've played in the big leagues, there's expectations from other people that they're going to feel, and that's the last thing I want him to feel from me. I want to know what's in his heart to play the game. If he does enjoy it, like Ryan mentioned this before, find out what really charges your kid up about playing the game. Oh, yeah. And I know for my son, it's the social aspect. He loves being around the team, being around the other kids. And, maybe he's also, going to be upset if he doesn't do well. He wants to do well, but at the end of the day, it's more about connecting with the other players. And that is something that I want to highlight each of his games because I know he loves it. They'll be like, hey, who did you talk to today that you didn't talk to on your team? Who did you encourage? Who did well on your team today? If he didn't do well, let's talk about who did, because chances are, because he's like that, he noticed it. So-and-so had a good game, or, he talked to this kid or that kid and really just being on the bench and, you know, being next to the guy next to him and them chattering about the game and about, you know, cheering their teammates on. For some kids, that is what they really love. You know, maybe they aren't the kid that loves hitting a home run and is going to be driven to try to hit more home runs after, you know, every game. And that's okay. Like find out what it is that charges them and then talk to them about that. And I think that eventually the other things that you know are important to you, you'll eventually get to those parts of the conversation. Like for my son, I know there were a couple things that I wanted him to focus on, particularly that had to do with team play that I think are really important for all kids, you know, and, you know, I focused on those few things, and I'm not going to say those. I think I've said them before on another podcast.
Tell us.
but it really had to do with very simple things like having fun and, you know, making sure that you are encouraging your teammates and very general things. But there are things that I believe, no matter what you're doing, are going to go into the next thing, you know, the next teamwork activity that you're in, the next time you're working on a skill that's really tough to build. You know, you do have to focus on the fun of it because it is going to be hard. There is a lot of failure involved. And, you know, I want him to, if he's ever going to make it to the next level or pursue something, I want him to have the foundations at a very early age of the things that are not only going to benefit in this sport, but in life long term. And if I can figure out what those things are right now, those are the things I want to focus on at the younger ages because they're going to pass on.
Yeah. I think where parents go too far is, you know, well, let me back up a second. If you think of that parent who's super pushy, over the top, too much, at the core of their heart, most of the time it's actually a good thing. They just want their kid to be the best. Yeah. But I think where parents go too far is instead of just teaching them kid by just giving them some examples or showing by their own life, they're trying to be the driving force to get their kid from A to B. And you can't do that. At some point, the kid has to be able to do it themselves. And it kind of goes back to the other podcast I talked about where at some point they got to learn if they're hungry or not for the game. And it's different phases with different ages. You're going to have to talk to your kid differently. But I think that's where parents go too far is they don't realize that they're the ones that are trying to be the catalyst or the driving force instead of letting the kid make that decision.
Yeah, to be the best as in the best on the field or the best the best version of themselves, right? Because sometimes parents are like, no, you got to be better than Jimmy over there. Whereas, you know, maybe that's not even in the cards for your kid who's that great. He's a great player in his own mind, but like that's the thing. There's these comparison games that we all play, and we do it at the major league level all the time because we see it on TV. You know, it's always this guy versus that guy, you know, like, oh, let's compare their numbers, comparison. Every kid is different. Every player is different. Every parent is different, you know? So let's treat each situation uniquely and remember that, you know, your kid does not need to be compared to anybody else. Like they do need to try to be the best version of themselves. Like we all want that for our own kid. And for ourselves, we should want that for ourselves. But you don't even know what that is. So stop putting so much pressure on yourself or putting pressure on your kid to be something ideal that there is no ideal. You know, we're all unique in different ways.
And that comes back to perspective, right? So like you're at a game, and if you're a kid and you see your parent freaking out in the stands over something going on, what do you think that tells the kid? It's okay to be emotional and to freak out. And if you're not freaking out, you should be freaking out on this whatever's going on. So I think what parents, they mean well. I mean well when I'm out there watching my little girl push other little girls down in soccer, you know, and I'm like fist pumping, like, yeah, way to go. But
she's
at the same time,
now.
Yeah, she is. She's legit. So like we're all in this together in a way. And if they see you losing it over something that in the big scheme of things does not matter, they see that and immediately they're like, I need to throw my helmet. I need to throw this bat or show up the umpire. Like those emotions, they're going to see it and they're going to translate it however they are in that moment. And parents need to be aware of that.
One of y'all share a story of a parent going over the top. Someone has to have a story.
Man, a lot of parents listen to this podcast.
Crazy.
You know, I just remember I'm gonna go way back. I remember being in high school, okay, and somebody that I went to high school with, like when I was talking about taking notes in the stands, like there was a kid and his dad, he had several kids, and he would like during high school basketball games and be like taking notes, and like was notorious for getting the kid right after they came out of the locker room to talk about what they did wrong, and I just felt so bad for him. Like the kid was like, they would never enjoy anything they did because they knew, you know, they just couldn't enjoy it because they knew that it was never going to be enough. You know, no matter how good they played, it was never going to be enough to please their parents. There's always something more that they could have done. And it was just sad. You know, it's kind of unfortunate that, you know, even at a young age, I remember feeling really bad for those kids. What do you got, Kyle? You're around parents all the time. You got anything?
I don't know if you heard the question. Hey,
Kyle, are you with us or what? Man? What's going on?
I don't know where he went. He's sitting next to me, but I think it's.
Oh, were you talking to me? You said Zoe.
No,
he said Kaz.
Guys.
Oh.
No, on this thing, he's known as J Money. Which
J Money.
Never referred to him as J. J Money.
Dang, I'm in the same spot, Schmalz. I feel like if I share some stories, like people are gonna know.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But the greater good, man. The greater good. Parents need to hear how they sound, how they
self-preservation, bro.
Yes. It's for the greater good.
How about this? How about this story? So high school basketball. Watching a high school basketball game, and this parent comes out of the stands, drunk as all get out, yelling at the referees. No, and it, you know, pointing at the referees and whatnot, you know, just going on. And the security had to come and take him away, and come to find out it was a player's dad, and the player was like,
"Oh my gosh!"
Right? Isn't that a terrible story?
I got another story.
It's not true. It's from Hoosiers, the movie. I never actually saw that.
I recognize that. And part of me was like,
you're like, wait a second.
So the coach was Gene Hackman.
No, the dad was Dennis. Was his name Dennis Hopper? Yeah.
Hopper, yeah.
Yes. No, but that's always the story that comes to mind. It's like that is the ultimate humiliation for a player, right? That would be the ultimate.
Oh my gosh.
But exactly. I've never seen it happen in person, but I remember watching that movie for the first time and being like you just have this pit in your stomach. Yeah. And the same feeling happens in the parents that are sitting watching their kid just enjoying a game, and so is screaming at the umpire, and you feel bad not for the parent, you feel bad for the kid, honestly, right? Yeah. And you're like, man, because you're like, that kid is just trying to play a game. You know, so nobody wants to be that guy. Nobody wants to be that parent that is over the top, but we all deep inside, we have it in all of us.
We all have it. No doubt.
So let me ask you this, everybody, and we probably need to wrap up here soon, but so what does a parent, you're talking to a parent, here's how you go to the game. Here's what you do. Here's what you say or don't say, like, go. What do you do? Ball game. Play ball.
I think I think it's more of what you don't do. You don't embarrass your child by your actions.
Yeah.
You encourage.
Sure.
That's it. You do anything beyond that. You can honestly, you can do a lot of other stuff beyond that, but just don't be unreasonable. You know, just keep it between the lines. You know, don't go. You know, it's the extremes, you know, that are, you know, there's no magic formula, but you know, just don't be unreasonable with them.
Yeah, the extremes are super uncomfortable for everybody else.
Yeah,
it takes a village to raise that kid.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It takes a village.
Dang.
And guess what? It's not just the parent. You talk to any major league player that's at the highest level, and you sit them down, they're going to mention their parents for sure, but they're also going to mention 20 other people that help them get to that spot. I think that'll help them know that it's not all on them either.
Nice.
That was
all right. I'm gonna try to go short and sweet here. Gosh, show up, right? Shut up. It's a little bit.
I feel like that's on
tough to do.
The park rules when you come up.
Yeah, right. It says don't talk. No, I mean, not completely shut up, but I would say pick up. Right. Think about picking your kid up. Pick up other kids too. You're the adult in the scenario. Show up. Be quiet when you need to. Pick somebody up when you need to. I mean, whenever a kid struggles, you want to try to pick them up. The other thing that I really love is highlighting great things for the kids. At the end of the day, I want my son, if we're walking off the field, I want him to hear me say to that one player, hey, great play on that one ball, or nice hit, or whatever. Because I just want him to learn how to do that for other people.
Yes.
Because that's what I want to build into my kid through that scenario. Is I want to do a better job of that. So I need to be aware and thinking of it, because I struggle enough with that as being a teammate myself. But then I want my kid to learn that at a much younger age than I did. So those are simple things that I'm going to try to focus on when I go to Little League games this year.
Yeah, you can sit there and evaluate what's going on. But at the same time, I would encourage parents to go and enjoy the game for what it is. It's entertainment. You go out there and you're watching a bunch of 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7, 10, 15, 20, 35, whatever it is. You're going out there and playing a game. It's entertainment. Go out there and enjoy it. You are not going to enjoy your kid playing baseball if you bring all this baggage with you or all these expectations. You cannot enjoy it. You won't. And probably your kid won't either. But I agree with you, Ben. You need to go out there and be encouraging for everybody, both teams. Go out there, especially at young ages, go out there and appreciate the game for what it is. A kid makes a good play, just celebrate that play and let your kids see you celebrating that. And if you want to have a teachable moment later, go, you know what, this kid probably worked really hard at fielding the ground balls, and that's why he made the play. But to me, that comes along with what happens before you get to the game. And Ryan, you brought this up, be available. Be available. Not if you don't do anything all week and then Saturday rolls around and you're putting everything on your child for that game and you haven't prepared them, you should expect very little. I do that. I'm like, hey, you want to go play catch? He doesn't want to go play catch or, take ground balls. That's fine. When the game happens, it's like, well, we didn't really practice. This is kind of what comes out of that. So if you want to be available and go out there and practice with your child, do that. Be available. But if you're not, then don't go throw expectations out there like they've been practicing all week. There's a certain accountability on both sides. But when you go to a game, go there, appreciate what's going on, enjoy the entertainment, and have fun with it, and know that this isn't the end all, that there's more things to life than amateur baseball.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Shout out. I want to shout out to the team moms before, the team moms or team dads, the ones that
no doubt
go to the game and do nothing but cheer on everybody from the whole team and both teams. There are people out there that literally are the best at that. They're incredible at it. And let me also say this, because we don't have necessarily team moms and team dads on major league and minor league teams. However, the coaching staffs are there constantly to just help us and serve us and constantly just do whatever we think is going to help us get better. That's what they do for us constantly. They're always thinking about us and what we need. Okay. And I know that there are parents out there. These guys are like the parents for major league players. Okay. There are parents out there that are like that for their kids. And we need to recognize those parents and know, man, they are exceptional people, exceptional parents. And every kid that's out there that might listen to this at some point needs to recognize what their parent has done for them.
Boom. Preach it.
Yep.
And help them get to this place, because it's easy to focus on what mom or dad isn't doing well. Right. But the reality is they're serving constantly and sacrificing constantly for their kids. So as a child still to my parents, I mean, and now that I'm an adult, I'm 37, I have kids of my own, like it doesn't take away the fact that I'm still super grateful for all the things that they did, and I actually, as I've gotten older, have become more grateful. So you hope that if your kid isn't recognizing it now when they're 12 or 15 or 21, just keep praying, because eventually they might recognize it. And at the end of the day, it's not about them recognizing what you're doing as much as it is both of you continuing to grow in your own ways. And that's parents and kids all need to keep growing.
I want to say one more thing, Tim, before you shut us down.
Go for
I think it's easier for us, the four of us to, I don't want us to come across as condescending. I mean, like we got this parenting thing figured out. Like, look, I'm a coach and a parent, and I make plenty of mistakes in both of those things. We don't have it figured out. I don't want to just throw stones. I mean, there's a lot of really good parents out there too. There's more positive stories that I see by far than negative stories. And players do need to be grateful, for the parents they have, for the opportunities that they have, and, to kind of keep that perspective that they have so many people around them trying to help them to have a great experience playing baseball. Finally, I would just say that, for parents out there, if there's anything to walk away from this podcast with, would be just focus on what, who your child is going to become instead of how they perform. I think who they become throughout baseball and in athletics and any activity that they're a part of is far more than their performance or their achievement. And that perspective is hard to keep sometimes, but I think that's probably the most important takeaway for me, at least.
I would say the last 3 minutes of this podcast has been awesome. I mean, groundbreaking. No one else is doing stuff like this, or at least being transparent where it's like, hey, this is how it is, Anyway, I just want to thank everybody out there for listening to this. I want to thank my partners in crime here, because I don't know. We do a lot of podcasts. To me personally, this has probably been one of the best. And I want to thank you guys, because I've actually learned something here. Hey,
this was a true show and go episode. I mean, reality, like we're all in different places. We showed up and we picked a topic, and parenting's an easy one to talk about though, because we all, obviously we all have parents and we all have seen issues, with baseball over the years, watching parents and stuff. So it's definitely a touchy subject. But I also think, I hope that we've highlighted some of the things that all people have seen that have been around the game for a while, but also I'm sure there's things we've missed. So if, people have comments, questions, things like that, we would love to hear. And we'd love to be able to talk about some of the things that we weren't able to get to at this time. But I know that there were some things that y'all were thinking like, hey, but what about this? We need to hear from you guys.
Yeah. Easy, man. That's my outro. Why you don't take my thing?
It's unbelievable.
All right. Well, that does it for this episode of Show and Go. If you have any questions or comments, Ben, topics you'd like to hear discussed on future episodes, feel free to interact with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Show and Go. And make sure to visit our amazing website, theshowandgo.com. And if you haven't yet written us a review, a glowing review, please do that. And on behalf of myself, Zoe, J Money, and Coach, thanks for listening, and join us next time on The Show and Go.
Show and Go.
The Show and Go.
So delayed. Did I sneak up on you? What did I not say?
I was looking at Audacity.
She was freaked out because she didn't see anything.
I was like looking at the line, and
You want us to do the Show and Go ending again?
Yeah.
no, it was good. It was good. It was
Parents. We're talking about what's the name of the episode, Ryan? What are you thinking?
the rentals.
What you're doing wrong as a parent.